Hello everyone. So we're back today, and we've been waiting for this for a while now. We have our nutritionist.
In the house.
Yes,
Hi.
Kritika.
Hi.
Who also works out with us in the gym.
Yes.
And there's a lot of talk about diets and nutrition nowadays, and I have realized talking to her that there's so much that I don't know. So what we would like to cover today is one thing, the general definition of nutrition. What is a diet? What are the different types of diet? What are the trends? And what are the trends, and why are they not sustainable? And who are these diets appropriate for? Are they age appropriate? Are they, it depends on the type of body that you have. So let's kick off the conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for having us. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Great things come to those who wait anyway, so we are happy to have you. Apparently, everyone, the basic definition of a diet, I can just simply say that everyone follows a diet, because it's in any country there is a staple diet. It's like in my country, talking about Zimbabwe, in my country we have, guys, where we have your thick paste of maize meal, then you put in some relish, then some beef. Oh my God, yummy. So that to us will be our staple diet. So by any means, diet is something that we eat and drink. I think that would be the basic definition. And also obviously talking about India,
Right.
What would be the staple diet in India?
So I think majorly that's what's the norm. You have your chapati, that's your bread, which is wheat.
Okay.
Again, it's very good in terms of fiber intake.
Yes.
Then you have vegetable, which is cooked vegetable, which is a norm meal in India. Again, it's a good combination when it comes to nutrition intake, it comes to fiber intake. But again, protein is one thing India as a country struggles with, because there isn't much of chicken intake or your meat intake or egg intake. It's something which has gradually gotten better, but it's not a norm. It's not something you see in a house.
Yes.
So that's like, it's a great example, by the way. Every country has its own
And I agree, the staple diets are the most nutritious in diets that there are. Unless then we started to adapt and also assume certain diets from other places, mostly Western diets, which are highly refined, and they're not good for us. So talking about my staple diet, talking about chapati, so the equivalent to that will be when we have wheat, then we grind it at home, or we grind it at a meal. Then it comes in its raw original form, brown color, no additives to it. Then we just put some yeast in there, then we form bread, and it's most nutritious. Then we just have our own ground nuts that we grow in the field. We grind it into peanut butter. Then you have your protein there. Then obviously, like what you're saying, in Zimbabwe, we basically eat anything.
Right.
Meat we have also from plants, vegetables that we grow naturally. So in terms of diets in my country, I think it is at the moment, unless when westernization comes and takes its toll on the people, but as of now it's very good. So nutrition, it will be how do we consume these foods and the way we process them in our bodies so that we can make them usable to our systems, then we can have healthy bodies and also we can function properly.
Exactly.
So that would be that.
So I think there's a lot of influence as well, right? From maybe seeing from the outside, other cultures, there's a lot of, I think this looks good, this is trending.
Yeah, absolutely.
Myths, what we speak about, right? There's a lot of influence on diet, this dieting culture. Diet is supposed to be something that you do as a lifestyle, as sustainable thing. Diet is not a short-term thing that you do. You switch off and you go back to doing what you were doing. And that's what the norm is today. That, are you dieting? Or let me do a diet. What is a diet? Are you going to hold back on something you're eating today, and then you go back to doing this in 6 months, 1 year, or 2 years, whatever your time span is, which is a struggle today that I see around. Diet could be in the form of your keto, A few examples that we spoke of.
Yes. So that takes us to the types of diets that
Yeah.
are out there, the most common types. I can just put them into broad major categories. So either you are vegetarian,
Yeah.
which means most of your diet is based on plant-based, and you are non-vegetarian, which means most of your intake is mostly non-plant-based. So it can either be coming from meat,
Yeah.
it can be coming from seafood, and then we have those which are designed for people who want to lose weight. Like
Correct.
we're talking about keto.
Keto.
Keto for people who wanted to lose weight, so they wanted to cut down on carbs.
Yeah.
And also you have Atkins diet, which is high protein. Keto is high fat, Atkins high protein.
Yeah.
But you can see the similarity between the two is that everyone wants to cut down on carbs. Because it seems like carbs is the major enemy.
It's like the villain. Carb is like the villain.
Exactly.
It's not.
So
it's not.
It's people try to villainize carbohydrates.
Yeah.
But if you eat the whole meal, carbohydrates,
It's so good.
it's so good.
So even to touch base on all three components of macros, right? Carb, protein, fat, the major ones, which is super important for us. You can vary that basis your goals at the end of the day. If you're looking to lose fat, maybe cutting down on carbs, upping protein would help, but not eliminating carbs. That's something people don't realize, and carbs is important because that's your source of energy at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be able to work out, you're not going to be able to function as your day-to-day without the source of carb. Protein, on the other hand, it's good for your muscle growth, it's
Yes,
good
yes.
good for your recovery. Fat has its own importance, which people have. Well, and I think Chennai could add to the fat piece.
So when you're looking at, now we are talking about we said
Yeah.
everyone is a diet.
Yeah,
Diet, I have my diet, you have a diet.
yeah,
But the moment you go on a diet, which means now you're diverting from what you're doing, the way you grew
Correct.
up in life, then you go on to something, you're bound to be off it because it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
Now, so why diet? Okay, now looking at, you were talking about carbohydrates. Now, when we ingest carbohydrates, you're looking at your rice, you're looking at your
Potatoes,
wheat, potatoes, bread.
these are all
The major components of carbohydrates. Now, these are not usable in our body, so the body has to break it down into
Exactly.
glucose. Now, that is what you get breaking down, then it goes into the bloodstream, then it ends up in certain organs like your organelles, then into the mitochondria, or it can end up being,
Yeah.
if you have too much of it, now we are going to talk about that as well, it can end up being converted into fat, then it comes into liver fat, then we have certain issues. But glucose is the energy of life.
Yes.
Without glucose, you cannot function. Now, someone can ask me, what about the Eskimos who don't grow carbohydrates? They're basically living on ice. They're living on blubber of whales, that fat. So what the body does now, it
Yeah.
produces its own glucose. If you don't take glucose, the body is going to produce its own glucose because it's essential that we have glucose, because glucose, that's the main primary source of energy.
Yeah.
And also that's the only thing that can go to your brain, and the brain can
That's
only
right.
register that. That's why people, when they start to restrict calories by cutting on carbs, you start feeling dizzy, you start feeling funny, you start feeling
really?
headaches.
Yes.
It's-
And then
it's
you're just
because
like,
of-
oh, I'm not able to think. It's not. I'm
Exactly,
feeling
you're lethargic.
fatigued.
Exactly. You're just sitting on the
so
couch.
you see people
Those
feel
are the
that.
side effects of
Cutting down on carbs.
Carbs.
Again, you're doing this as a major measure to solve for your fat loss, which is not the ideal
On the
way
way
to go about it.
Exactly.
You still need carb. Complex carbs are the best things you can do in the likes of rice, in the likes of
Brown
bread.
rice,
brown rice,
brown bread.
brown bread. Again, yes,
Whole
that's
meals.
another segment altogether of brown rice versus
Yeah.
white rice. However, these are your friends. Potatoes are actually good
Yeah,
for you.
true.
They're
Sweet
so
potatoes
good.
as well.
People are, I don't want fries. Again, fries is another thing, but having potatoes, which are like part of your meal.
Let's put it this way, everything that grows from the soil,
yeah.
everything that you pluck out from the soil,
Yeah.
is good for you.
Agree.
Anything that is then refined after that,
Yeah.
then we have issues because there are certain additives. It's fortified, like, okay, I'm going to be big and all that. Or they enrich it, I'm going to be rich by eating all that stuff, which is not good. So I would, like she's saying, get the original raw form, the raw materials. If you pluck your sweet potatoes, if you harvest your own maize, we are not saying we go to growing our own stuff, but get something that is very close to the source instead of having something that you see, the major problem now is not only about food, but it's the distance between the farm itself and the time it gets to your table.
Farm to table,
True.
yes.
Farm to table issues.
That's I think growing up we learned that, right?
Yeah. My children are learning it. They're actually teaching it in schools now, the farm to table.
Oh, wow.
You know. So it's interesting that there is more interest around it.
Yeah.
Let me just, a specific example, oil. When we were growing up, I don't know if from where I grew up where we were, was Zimbabwe is an agrarian society. We were mostly agriculture based. So we grow our own, like we're talking about granules. Then we basically grind our nuts into a thick paste. Then we have some of the oil as residue. Then we can also use that oil for cooking purposes. Now there's nothing added to it. Even sunflower seeds, we also grind our own to make sunflower oil. We don't have canola, but I can imagine certain countries like Canada where they have canola plants. You can basically grind it, then you can get canola oil. Now the problem is the distance from that place to the table. Now we are buying canola oil, which is all the way from Canada to here, and get it from the shelf. Now what's happening in between was when they crush this oil, it comes out gummy. Then you have to degummify it, because you can't just put it in a gummy form. So what they add is what they call hexane. Hexane is a neurotoxin. So basically it has damaging effects on your neurons. So your nervous system is affected. Then so they degummify. Now the moment then they heat it up again. So they heat it up so that it becomes oil between 400 and 500 degrees. Then it's rancid, it's unpleasant, it's not tasty. Then you have to perfume it, deodorize it. Then they put some sodium hydroxide.
So it sustains.
Oh my God! So that you can actually sustain it all the way from there.
Then you put more preservatives.
Then you put more preservatives so that you can have a longer shelf life. By the time you buy it in Carrefour in our shelf lives, it has to be usable.
With fruits, right? Today there are a lot of imported fruits you get.
I mean, how many times do we see something?
We see that, like,
from Australia,
and it stays
from Brazil.
An ideal shelf life of a banana is what? 3 days?
Yeah,
it stays for more than a week,
exactly.
which is also a pain point.
I think the longer something stays, when I go to the supermarket, I'm like, okay, 1 year, 2 year expiry. Like, how is this going to give me nutrition?
Correct.
True.
How am I going to get my nutrition from it? So that's the thing with amount of processed food. It's in abundance now, I think.
Correct.
Now going into a grocery shop like Carrefour, for me, it's a minefield. The moment you step in, you're lost.
I think the best thing to do, you know what you need on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly.
Just either order it or go with that mission of this is it, this is what I need. Go to these places and just come back.
Exactly.
So talking about what you need, and we're talking about nutrition.
Correct.
Okay, so let's touch more about the macros or the macronutrients, and if you can talk a little about that, and how do we know how much of each, what is the combination that we require, what's appropriate for us?
I think it goes back to the point of diet. Again, not the diet that we know of, the short-term diet, but a lifestyle diet of what is that you're gunning for, what is that you're aiming from a lifestyle perspective. Okay, today I want to cut down on a little bit of fat, maybe, or I want to gain muscle, or you know what, my day-to-day is fine, I need more energy. Depending on your life goals is where you can play with your macros.
Okay.
So it could be as simple as someone looking for weight loss, like we spoke about in the beginning. That person can probably look at having lesser of carb, more of protein, and just about lesser of, there's a whole percentage to macros, I think it's worth touching base on. So out of 100%, you can have 30% of your meal being carb.
True.
So whatever you're eating on a plate, take that plate as 100%. Think of it that carb becomes 30% of that portion.
Okay.
40% becomes your protein.
Yes.
And the rest of the 30% becomes
fruits
fat.
and vegetables and fats.
So that's your split on a plate, and that's how it would look. There's a whole measurement you can do with your thumb, finger, to measure how much carb, how much fat. Fat is usually measured by a thumb. Carb on the other hand is your fist.
Yes.
So is your fat. So you can do measurement. It's very simple. It's out on the internet. Diet
Yes.
doesn't have to be so complicated.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be
Oh my
these
God, I agree.
trending topics. It is so simple. It's as simple as your plate.
Yes.
It's as simple as a breakdown of your plate based on your goal. So out of 100%, let's say if I'm someone who wants to gain muscle, which means I'll up my protein here.
Yes.
So that 40% probably this time I'm like, hey, I want to go aggressive for the next few months.
Okay.
I'll make it a 45%. That's where I'll have more of chicken pieces or the meat or egg, whatever that is. Then carb could be maybe potato, that small portion of that, because now I've reduced on my carb.
Yes.
Fat could be nuts, could be
Yes.
avocado.
Avocado
Your
oil.
oils are
Yeah,
fat.
olive oil.
Yeah.
Olive oil is fat. People don't realize
true,
that
true.
because there's no measurement to it, right? Like
Yeah.
I've cooked it. If I've cooked it in olive oil, there is part of fat which has gone there.
Exactly.
So we miss out on that in our day-to-day, but it doesn't have to be so complicated. If you just know the basics of it while cooking, while consuming, you know what's happening. But doesn't have to be, oh, this is too much carb, or I don't want to eat this because I shouldn't eat this, I'm going to gain weight. You can once in a while, but if you know it's not good for you,
Yeah.
just don't have it every day. That's a whole you need to have.
That's so interesting to know. You know, all my life I'm like, nutrition is too complicated.
Yeah.
And this is what, you're simplifying it. I wasn't aware. I think a lot of people, and we grew up in such environments or in such
Yes.
households where it wasn't complicated. We would just eat everything. So for me to think too much
Correct.
itself is like resistance.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Just to add on to what you guys are talking about, decision fatigue. I mean, there's so much that we have to deal with.
I know.
You wake up in the morning, you find out what am I going to put on today, what color combinations am I going to put on today. My kids, I need to prepare them their breakfast, their lunch.
Yeah.
I need to prepare myself. I need to train. I need to go to work. Then meetings. All this just too much going on. So then someone comes to you and tells you that you should have 60 grams of protein, you should have 25 grams of carbohydrates. Now,
just look at your plate.
Exactly,
It's
like
that
what
simple.
she's saying.
Just look at your plate. What is it?
that eat well plate, a third of it just being carbs.
And
Now, also some, like we're talking about feast portions.
yes,
This is your carbs. Now, if you look at this, it's just like one medium-sized potato
yeah,
and also 5 tablespoons of rice, cooked rice.
cooked rice.
Yes, because I mean 5
Never.
tablespoons of uncooked. That would be a lot. So every time when you go to see someone when they're eating, you look at their plate. There are two things.
Yeah.
One will be like, oh, okay, how is it there? They will be like, it's okay. I'm just having my meat, my this and this. Okay, it seems balanced. But then you look at someone's plate, they'll be like, no, it's only for today. Today I decided to cheat. But I'm like, but it seems like that's what you eat every day. So people just need to make informed decisions.
Correct.
If well complex meals like what you talked about, well complex carbs, very healthy oils, like what you said, I was happy that you mentioned it. Olive oil.
Olive oil.
It's
Yes.
still oil, so it makes you fat. A gram of olive oil,
Correct.
a gram of any other oil is 4 calories.
Correct.
So too much of the olive oil still, it
Is
can
a
make
fat,
you
yeah.
fat. So you have to be very in moderation when you use the olive oil.
He's right.
And also the proteins, they have to be lean cuts. You see
Correct.
any visible fat on, especially for us people who eat meat. If I'm having lean stacked, if I see any visible fat on it or a chicken, just chip off that
Just
fat.
strip off that, yeah. So
And then it'll be
again,
fine.
this gets very in depth, and while yes, if your intention is there to go on that path, all of this is very handy. But to make it, like, to go back to your first topic of Indian food versus cultural food, right? Today, I feel in my definition, Indian meals are actually really good. The only thing missing is protein. So when I look at my plate, that 2 chapatis could become 1.
Yeah.
That
True.
vegetable stays 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just add some source of protein there, I am good to go. I don't need to complicate this because I have my fat through the oil it's cooked in.
Yeah.
I have my vegetables there.
Yeah.
I have my wheat, which is your fiber there.
Yeah.
I just need some source of protein and I'm good. But I don't need to eat 3 chapatis. My body doesn't need it.
True.
Yeah.
That's where some fixes are needed,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be. Maybe if this was a different oil I cooked in, maybe if this potato was sweet potato and not normal.
True,
It's not that complicated.
True.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting because when my husband was when he started working out 12 years ago and he had a trainer, that was not even a trend then, talking about nutrition, at least in our house. So he started reducing on his, eating his bread, his chapati, and he would have more of vegetables,
Right.
fiber and protein. So we couldn't understand, we couldn't process it in the house,
Correct.
like why. But now it makes sense and it's made a
You can
lot
still,
of difference.
yeah, you can still eat the same.
I had the same issue also when I started doing competitions in competitive. So you go on a pre-contest diet, which is basically what took me on this new journey. Was when you're doing pre-contest weights, everything has to be boiled. You can't boiled rice, boiled potatoes, boiled fish, and also you have complex carbs, whole meal carbs. Then you have a fruit or a vegetable. So you don't see anything. You don't see oil at all, zero. Then so now if you look at bodybuilders, they eat huge quantities, but everything is clean. That's one thing also that is very important. You have to have if you are going to have your chapati, now this is from the conversation that I have with other people. There are two ways of making chapati, I guess, where you
Normally cooked or with oil.
with oil, and the other one you just without
that's it.
oil.
Yes.
Exactly. Now that one without oil is the healthy one. I've seen paratha.
That's what I'm referring to,
Okay.
guys.
Butter,
Not the
ghee.
paratha, not the paratha.
So someone introduced me to paratha. So I hold it in my hands. And literally oil was just sipping through my fingers. I'm like, no, this is not healthy. Where can I? Then they referred me to either roti, which also was a healthy option, or a chapati, which is a healthy option. So it's the way your foods have to be clean. If anything that is dipped into fat, if you see yourself dipping something into oil, boiling oil, like your fried chips, fried chicken, okay, I don't know.
I think potatoes, I just gave an example
Also
of
potatoes,
you can have
yes.
fried potatoes versus this nowadays air fryer is a trend.
Yeah.
Go for it. Go for the air fryer. Fried, they're deep fried in oil. It's a no-go.
Yeah.
It goes back to the paratha example.
Yeah, you can bake. You can bake
potatoes.
Yeah, no, you can grill. You can bake it. There's so many ways. I think that's where people have misunderstood what to eat and what not to
Correct.
eat.
Now there are so many contraptions that we can use to help our lives. Like you just have your rice cooker there. You have your what is
Air
this?
fryer, yeah,
Air fryer.
air fryer.
Thank you so much. Air fryer. And also there's this. I've seen it.
Are you talking about the NutriBullet?
Yeah, the
NutriBullet, yes.
NutriBullet.
Yes.
Oh damn! We just throw things in
You
there. You
throw
can
things
actually
in.
go to work and come back. It's already cooked.
Correct.
And it's just using maybe the heat or the steam in there. It's healthy.
Yeah.
So now where I come from, this is nothing to slamming any other culture. Where I come from, mostly we cook our own foods in our house. Now the way when you cook it yourself, you have control of what's going into your pot. Because if you're going to have a healthy diet, yes, you're not going to use certain things because this is not. Everyone knows.
Correct.
If I give you a packet of chips, this is not healthy. If I give you a fried buttered chicken with breadcrumbs on it, this is not healthy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. So if you know that, then obviously if you're going to cook it by yourself at home, then yes, you can have control over the diet as well.
That's interesting. Since we're talking about diets and nutrition,
Yes.
diets in particular. What are the trends? And we were discussing there are certain trends that are meant to be for a certain body type,
Correct.
and then people are just blindly going for something.
True.
I think one trend I've spoken of, which is not really spoken of nowadays, but I see that a lot, which is high protein,
Low carb.
low carb.
That I can see.
It sounds great, right? Like I'm doing my thing, I'm having high protein. There shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, true.
There's such a big problem. So I see people who are like, but I'm just having protein. They're having steak, they're having chicken, they're having a lot of eggs. Again, great. But are you balancing out with fiber?
No.
Why? Most simplest thing. Protein takes a lot of time to digest.
It does.
Your system is working to digest that meat there.
Yeah, true.
And for that, you need fiber. fiber to take the protein you need versus let go of things that you don't need. And because it's so high protein and you're not consuming enough fiber, you're not consuming enough carb, it becomes a struggle. It becomes a struggle to as good as constipation for people.
Exactly.
Which is not an ideal scenario to be.
Oh.
So it's not something that's spoken of because it seems like, oh, high protein, I'm good. But it's not.
Yes.
I
agree with her. The Atkins diet, the high protein, low carb diet, which was mainly, this came from cardiologists. It was mainly meant for diabetics. And people with diabetes. Now everyone now jumps onto the bandwagon because it is the fad at that time. That was like, let me just try it. If diabetic patients, because they end up losing weight because they are on this diet and also their insulin treatment.
But also for them, sugars goes up with carbs, right?
Yeah, it goes up. But now because you've restricted the carb, so your glucose levels, they won't spike up that quickly. And also now you're talking about, now that's very critical. If you eat carbs naked, like the way they say it, and naked carbs without any protein, if I just, guzzle on bread, potatoes, rice without protein, it can be plant protein, it can be animal protein, this will spike my glucose levels very quickly. Then you have other issues associated with that. We'll talk about metabolic syndromes associated with that. So with a diet that is so everything has to be balanced. So get your protein, get your carbs. Now if you have your carbs with your protein, they're no longer naked, they're clothed. Now when you have carbohydrates and proteins in your gut, it's going to be a slow digestion because you talked about fiber. What you see, problem is every time we take something that, like your white rice, your white pasta, the fiber is being stripped off these carbohydrates. But if you take them in their natural raw form, you have the fiber with it. Especially, for where I come from, when we just go into the field, we take a maize cob, you boil it, then you just eat it with all the fiber in it. An apple, you don't have to take off the skin and just eat the fleshy part. That skin is the fiber that you need in your body. And what happens with the fiber, it increases the stomach contents. It makes it voluminous, bulky, which means you feel full very fast. And also at the same time, you stay for a longer time feeling full. So you don't have to eat too frequently. And also the emptying of the stomach is slow. And so then, like we were talking about, you don't have any constipation issues because the fiber also feeds the microbiome in your gut, the bacteria in your gut, it feeds on that. So when you restrict yourself, especially Atkins diets on carbohydrates, apart from having lethargy, headaches, and also dehydration, because carbohydrates is what holds water in your body. So you're basically starving yourself. And the moment you start, the diet industry is an industry by the end of the day. It's a multi-billion industry.
I know.
They're trying to push their products onto they push their trends so that everyone jumps onto the next trend. And
it's an easy hack, right? What the industry is promoting today, again, some parts of it are really beneficial. They're educating, so it's out there. But some part of it is also, it's easy for someone who doesn't have time. Which is not solving for it.
I think that's it. I think, like we were talking about quick fixes, right? We just we want someone else to tell us. We don't want to know we don't know what we're doing to ourselves. We want someone else to tell us, and we just blindly trust.
Follow through that. Exactly.
So I think diet and nutrition is one of those things.
So vegetarian.
Vegetarian,
yes. I'm surrounded by two vegetarian people.
I'm not vegetarian.
You're not vegetarian?
No,
it's
only her.
Oh, okay. By any stretch of the imagination, I'm not a vegetarian. And I have why people actually go on vegetarian diets for moral, ethical, and also environmental reasons, which I fully respect and power to those people because it's what we are doing to animals at times, and also the way we are basically harming the environment because there are just too many when we keep cattle, we keep animals in caged facilities, diseases associated with that. So I can understand why some of the people, for moral reasons, it's not ethical for them to do that. So I respect that. But So you have vegetarian diets. Now, we're talking about protein.
Yeah.
Protein, by the end of the day, the building blocks of protein is amino acids. And we talked about 20 amino acids that are there to make different types of proteins.
Correct.
We were talking about branched chain amino acids the other time, and essential. Now, essential amino acids, 9 of them, those ones you can't get. Okay, the body is so amazing. The body produces its own amino acids.
Correct.
But 9 of these ones, the essential ones, it cannot. You have to get it from your diet. You have to get it from your plant proteins. You have to get it from your animal proteins. Then you can have a complete. So people who can actually. So what other people have done is there are some people who like carnivorous diets.
Yeah.
These guys are just feeding on meat. There's no carbs in their diets. It's just meat. Morning, afternoon, dinner is meat. No vegetables, no carbs. They have their own reasons why they are doing that. But what to do the moment you stick to a specific diet is because you're going to restrict your nutrients.
Yeah. That's true.
Protein. What about the vitamins, the minerals that you get from the plants?
Yeah.
They are not there. What about the glucose that you get from your carbohydrates? It's not there.
Yeah.
Then you start having some metabolic issues or illnesses which are caused by deficiencies in these types of diets as well.
It's true. It's interesting to know this whole protein thing because I'm vegetarian. A lot of people tell me, yeah, if you're working out, you should have meat, and there is no way I'm, switching to this thing. But I try my best to take in my tofu.
True. Lentils.
Sprouts,
You have your tofu,
bean
your
sprouts.
cottage cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
Broccoli, by the way.
So this is another myth, right? You cannot work out if you're not eating meat or some from like eggs. But I wasn't ready to compromise, and I think I'm fine. Like I'm doing pretty okay. It really depends on your goals again.
Right.
If you're very ambitious and you're ready to change your diet,
Correct.
it's fine. I feel perfectly fit and fine. I think, and I'm progressing quite okay.
Yeah. So vegetarian, non-vegetarian.
Yeah.
Then you have diets that are to do with weight loss, like your Atkins, keto.
Yeah.
Then you have diets which are bespoke for certain illnesses. I mean, for people who have diabetes, obviously they get to see a dietitian. Then they write them the specific guidelines, the specific quantities that they need to take, so that they can keep their glucose levels under control. What we are basically saying is that diets, they are not effective, they're ineffectual, and they are not sustainable for the simple reason that once you are on it, you're going to be off it. And you see, the best way to treat a diet is, yes, you have a specific goal, you want to lose, you have a specific goal in mind. I want to lose 10 kgs in 6 months. Yes. When you get to 8 kgs, you are now struggling. The 10 kgs just like light at the end of the tunnel. At least you have a goal, you get your 10 kgs. But once you get there,
then what?
That's the issue.
Then what?
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Sustaining is the issue.
Sustaining is the issue.
Yeah.
And more often than not, people crash. They crash and they go back to point A.
And the boomerang even with the more weight than
Exactly,
before.
and that's what happens. You might have lost 10, but you're not going to go back to that weight, but more than that.
Oh, so metabolism comes there, right?
So the metabolism comes in because, one, you have been starving yourself for too long and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And also there's what they call leptin. Leptin is that hormone in the body which is produced in the fat cells. So leptin, what it does, that is why when fat cells, they store fat.
Correct.
That's the only form in which the body stores energy in the body. So if you have too much carbohydrate into glucose, then glucose, if it's too much, then it's converted into fat in the fat cells, or fat itself simply straight into fat. So when the fat cells register that you have enough fat now or reserves in the body, which is the storage form of energy in our body, then it sends the message to the brain that we are enough. And then the brain sends message to the rest of the body that, okay, we have enough. Then let's start doing certain things to expand on this energy. Let's be active. Let's go and train. Let's do this. Let's do that. So now the problem is so leptin is directly related to your glucose, which is basically then changed into fat. So if you starve, your leptin is not going to, it's like a radar, it's not going to register it's not going to register. It's not going to register. Then by the time you have less glucose in the body, your set point now is way high. But there's just too much leptin flowing in your body. It's just way high. So when you go back to your normal, now your set point is now higher than before, then you are bound. So for you to reach that, you have to eat a lot.
Oh.
Then you reach your set point. So initially your set point was here because there was enough glucose.
Yeah.
When you get satisfied quickly, boom, you hit your set point. Leptin registers that. But now because you've been starving, leptin now has set a new point. By the time you get there, then instead of just that amount of weight, maybe an extra 10 kgs. So like what she was talking about, you need, once you get to a certain point, now let's talk about the maintenance phase.
Correct.
What are you going to do that you have reached that weight? How do we maintain it? You can't be on that diet forever. So you need to slowly introduce your macronutrients into your diet.
Correct.
Then eventually your body, it will take some time, but it will register a new set point. Then you can maintain a healthy weight instead of just sticking. Was this yo-yo thing of on, off, on, off,
Yeah.
on, off?
It's not sustainable.
Yes.
Also, one thing, very simple put, eat till you're 80% full, which people don't do. Very simple. Again, the whole concept of look at your plate, again, not by a double layer, but just about how much you need. See the breakdown basis, your goal. Eat till you're 80% good.
Yes.
Your brain takes at least 40 to 45 minutes to register that food. You will not feel full right away.
Yeah.
It takes time. But you don't have to feel 100% at the time you have finished eating. Just eat that about food, give it some time, you'll be fine. But provided you've eaten the right portion for yourself, because a lot of times we have one burger and we're like, we'll have another one. That's not healthy.
Yeah, I used to do that, and my dad would say like, just wait, because I wouldn't be able to control and
Yeah.
that hunger.
Yeah.
I would overeat and then
Yes.
feel so uncomfortable afterwards.
So
Exactly.
feel guilty.
So in that moment, it's hard,
That simple.
because you want to be satisfied in like 100%, but you don't realize. Of course, that has helped me. a
Now
lot.
that brings us to the frequency of meals.
This can go on, this can go
how many
on.
meals do you normally have? Or
On
how
an
many meals?
average,
On average a day.
2.
And you?
Me too.
Okay, same here too.
Yeah.
So what about this? Now that we've registered
let's talk
we've
about our
established
experience.
What about the 5 recommended meals in a day?
Oh.
Okay. Is
I've tried that, by the way. It
and how
didn't
did
work
go?
for me.
Same here. It didn't work
Yeah,
for
it
me.
didn't
doesn't.
work for me.
It's just like, because the body, from what I've heard, is that your body's constantly, it's so busy putting energy into digesting.
Exactly.
It can't put energy into anything
And that's
else.
another myth we can talk about. Have 5 meals every shot.
Oh, God.
You don't need to.
No, and especially when you're sick, you're told, especially when we're sick, we were told as kids, just have one meal or have something light.
Correct.
Because your body needs to allocate that energy to heal
Correct.
or to fix itself. And we put, and my husband also says, I have this habit of snacking for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me like, I think it's just a few almonds, or this is healthy.
Yeah,
but
true.
It's not about
It's not, yeah.
eating that healthy bit.
It's
It's the
It's about
frequency.
the body again. It has to kickstart the whole process of digesting.
exactly.
True.
So that's where it doesn't matter if it's healthy or if you feel like you're snacking something good, but just having that gap has helped
Correct.
me. I had a lot of digestion issues. So this,
Oh,
having
wow.
just 2 meals and having that gap has helped me with my digestion too.
This also takes me to the point of gapped
Yeah.
intermittent
true.
fasting, but that's a very broad topic to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also do that.
Even I
Intermittent
do
fasting,
that, but
yeah.
for me it's very natural because of the last meal versus the first meal in the day.
Exactly,
Yeah.
That becomes my intermittent fasting, and
Yeah,
that
yeah,
really
true,
helps
true,
with your
true.
insulin, which really helps
Yeah.
with your fat. So it's such a byproduct of controlling your body, but you're not starving yourself.
Yeah, true.
Exactly.
And yet I'm having 2 meals, I
Yeah.
work out and everything, but it's so beautiful if you can just manage to control your body in that way.
It's interesting, this holistic view.
Yeah.
We just think it's just this diet or it's just workout. When we look at everything, your intermittent
Exactly.
fasting, and I think health
That's
in
another
itself
diet.
is a
That's
holistic-
intermittent fasting one is another diet plan.
Yeah,
Because you are
oh,
restrict-
It is.
You're restricted. Yeah, you're
And there are so
restrictive.
many ways to do it.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
16-8, you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
days
16-8.
of 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some they do 16 hours off, then they have an 8-hour
8 hours
period where
window.
they eat. Then some they like they go for 1 day off completely.
Correct,
They don't
and then they eat the next.
the next
But
day,
people also, for few people, in that 8 hours, they go all out. That's
No,
not the
that's-
idea.
yeah.
That's not the idea.
everything that if you everything
This
in
is some hack
moderation.
there as well.
Everything in moderation.
That's not the idea.
Yeah.
The idea is for you to have good meal, balanced meal in those 8 hours.
Yes.
But you eat in those 8 hours.
Actually, fasting is good for you.
It's so good for you.
Actually, when you fast, they say some of the nonsense stuff in your cells, they go through starvation, then they die.
Yeah.
Then it's another way of cleansing your body,
Yeah.
cleansing your system. And you can't constantly bombard your body with
Correct.
food, and it overworks, like what you said.
Yeah.
Now, when a system overworks, it's bound to just crash and
True.
collapse. Then that's when you have issues concerning health.
I
as
think,
such.
it is said, that all the problems usually start from the stomach. Most of the diseases, of course, you have stress-related diseases, but a lot of them start in the stomach.
Correct.
And I'm a true example of that because I grew up having a lot of issues
stomach
with my
issues.
gut, generally with my digestion, and I was always lethargic most of my life. And just managing my food itself has brought a lot of difference. Even when I was not working out, but changing my food habits, having the gaps, stopping, all my snacking, and switching to a healthier diet.
If you realize most people that, like talking about 5 meals a day, that bombardment, that constant pounding of your digestive system is so energy draining.
Right.
That's why you find people who do that. Mostly they're just sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
Because you become lazy.
Correct.
Because your body is in overdrive. But you realize people that actually restrict, let me not use the word restrict, it implies starvation. People who are doing intermittent fasting, now because your body is in a fast mode, you basically deplete all the energy reserves in your fat cells, you deplete your fat storage, you deplete your glycogen, you deplete your liver glycogen. Then the body is always, yearning for something. Then it becomes so active.
Correct.
Because there's nothing that is draining you. That's why you find people who eat less, they are so active and they burn more. And then they look healthy. So by the end of the day, yes, food, though it is a basic need of life, but we just need to be very, very informed about it, and also making very informed decisions.
Yeah, like you said, it's a very basic thing, but we've made it such a big part of our life. It's all about food, what to make, what to cook, what to eat. Eating 3 meals. When I went from 3 meals to 2 meals, I felt good. There's sometimes I feel hungry and I add in that third meal.
Yeah.
And I know the next day I just feel tired.
Yeah, true.
Because my body's
True.
gotten used to those 2 meals.
Correct.
And there are times when I do that 1 meal, if I do manage to get into that, mode where I can do 1 meal just, to fast, I feel so energetic.
True.
Wow.
It's amazing how the body
So the
works.
moral of the story, fasting.
Yes,
Let's
at least
fast.
once a week.
For whoever can manage.
Exactly.
Again, for whoever, without any health restrictions, because there are
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
of
would have
course,
to,
of course. The
absolutely.
intermittent fasting is something my husband does, and then like every day, and then once a week he goes on that complete 24-hour fast.
Oh,
And
damn.
Yeah,
amazing.
just once a week.
Yeah.
And I used to be like, how can you go without food? And this is what, again, a very cultural thing. We've grown up
Oh,
with this belief,
yeah. Okay.
oh, you're without
I
food.
get it.
There's with children, stuff them with food. Oh no, they've not eaten. It's been 2 hours. I have seen
Correct.
it personally. I have seen it in our families that you have to keep feeding children every
Correct.
few hours. And when my children my children naturally they try to keep like a long gap, especially my older one, and my husband's like, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Let him not get into this whole habit of munching and snacking.
Correct.
And yes, definitely they do have that energy.
Yeah, talking
So-
about snacks.
I mean, I was just
Okay,
going to say
Coke
something
Zero.
that worked for me.
Diet
I'm not
Coke.
talking about Coke Zero right now. Like something that's worked for me for fasting
Yeah.
Yes.
without making it a fast.
Okay.
Eat the last meal at 5 p.m., which is your dinner.
Yes.
Then have the first meal at like 8 a.m. Which I am not fasting technically.
That's
to think
16
of
hours
it.
later.
Yeah, that's
15,
my
16.
that's my dinner.
Yeah, true.
My lunch is at 12:30.
Yeah.
I know. I have people around me who are like, oh, but
do you
that's
do
so early. What is wrong with you? It's working for me. By the time I'm in bed, my food is digested.
digested.
I am good. And my first meal is at It's not even a meal. It's literally just a protein shake or something small.
Yeah.
It's at 7:38.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my intermittent fasting in a way.
Yeah, I do that because it's
great.
easier. You're anyway sleeping. You know, you're not going to eat. We
You
sleep
should
early.
eat. You should eat at least 2 to 3 hours before your bed.
Yeah.
You should not eat before your
exactly.
bedtime.
Yeah, and I think that really
Takes time to digest.
Yeah, I mean, I eat by 6:30. People,
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't eat after 7, 8.
Oh, yeah.
People will go like, "How don't you feel hungry?" I'm like, "No, I sleep early."
Yeah, your body gets used to
Your
it.
body gets so used to
Yeah.
it. So I think that's worked for me personally.
Correct.
And I think there can be a lot of advice around. But we all should try, and I think we should just once
Correct.
we become aware that this is what's working for me, and then you go with it.
Yeah. So what works for one, it doesn't necessarily mean that is going to work for the next
Correct.
person.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
what she said, like what we said, you just have to find the food that basically it's a trifecta. You complex carbs,
Yeah.
lean proteins,
Lean protein,
and also fruits and vegetables. That
good fat.
good fat,
Yeah, good fat.
and also the
Good
fats,
fat.
the good fat as such. That's okay as long as you have them in the right proportions, the right portions
simple.
at the right times, clean. We are set to go.
Amazing. This is Nutrition Simplified. I think there's so much
Trying,
about
yes.
nutrition that
Correct.
we would like to talk again.
There are so many things. I want to talk about Coke Zero.
I want to talk about calories.
Yeah, also
Yes,
that.
calories.
Yeah.
Why do you want to talk about Coke Zero? Why we are talking about
Because you
calories?
take Coke Zero.
I know, but that's not every day.
So
Yeah.
calories.
Calories
Now
is
there's a hashtag out there. Say kill the calories.
So I think we should talk about that.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
We should
because
talk about that.
who came up with that term in the first place, and how do we
That's
know it's good for us? Because the calories basically is the heat energy that is released when you burn food. So there's what they have, what they call a bomb calorimeter. So they put food in there like a gram of carb, gram of whatever. Then it says how much heat energy it takes to raise the water temperature when you burn it by 1 degree Celsius. But our bodies are not bomb calorimeters. The way we
Correct.
burn it is different from that thing. So if you try to transfer the way this thing is happening into my own system, so the science now out there is saying that calories is not a true way of going to like counting calories. Like some of us, we have now these personalized tools that we're using. You see yourself by the end of the day, you're looking at I've burned 2,200 calories. But that's not the way the body works.
Correct.
In terms of burning calories. It's not so absolute like that. So that's something that we can actually talk about
I
next
think
time.
it's a big topic, but I think we should cover it in the next.
I know that would be awesome.
episode.
Actually, I want to kill calories as well.
It's
it's
I
not-
want to get into the detail of it, and
Yes.
I think it's interesting to close this conversation here, and then we continue
Done.
in our next one. Thank you, Pritika. It's
Thank
been
you.
interesting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chennai. I've learned a lot
Thank
as
you.
usual, and we
So
would
much
like
more to do.
We would like to have you again.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
Calories and Diet Coke.
Diet Coke.
Yes.
We found the topic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.